Welcome back to Trip Talk Tech. We got a special show for you today. We're going to get to the technology, but we got a show filled with some just mental health, some self healing today that we'll get from our guest, who is just a talented entertainer, broadcast journalist, radio podcast hoster himself, motivational speaker, author, and for me, I like to say world renowned because he popular as I don't know what. Licensed therapist, and that's why we picked him to come on the show today. Please help me welcome my guy Rashad Mills to the show, man. How you doing?
I'm blessed. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, thank you for having me on. Man, all of those kind words that you said about me, I got to go back and look at my resume and make sure they are real.
make sure I ain't doing no fibbing, huh? Hey,
Yeah.
look, it's our thing with Trip Talk Tech. When we get our guests on, we like to just show love and give you roses while you're here. And one of the reasons, like I was saying, we got a mutual friend. Shout out to Jay. Uh, but we were talking about you, and your name came up. And one thing I do remember, and I watch you from afar. Obviously, we don't hang out every day, but just the work you've done in the community, the community work with the youth. I was kind of heavy into that myself, but you just at the rec levels, coming up with the boys in sports, and then just at the education level, teaching them, boys and girls, and then just the therapy piece behind that. So just salute to you, brother, for that. And then I say what you do for the world. And I say world from a standpoint of I've been watching you on Facebook. I think we've been friends for a while now, and you just stay consistent showering us with love. And love from a standpoint of, you got your own show, like I mentioned in the introduction, on Tuesdays, you got the Rashad Mills shows at 7 o'clock, and then you come and hit us with the love on Thursday, the therapy Thursdays, and then you hit us on Friday with the happy hour, some nuggets in there for just to make us smile and get ready for the weekend, and then you come back and show love to, some of the black business owners on Sunday. So again, just giving from your heart. I know sometimes with being a leader, you don't always get that, head nod or that thank you, but just from our community, I know that stuff is selfless. I know that takes some time, and I know it take a lot of work. You could probably get paid for some of that stuff, but just again from our community, and just thanking you, man, and just salute.
No, I truly appreciate it, man. It's like it's one of those things that sometimes when you're in the midst of doing things, you don't really understand the impact of it that it has
Hmm.
on other people. And one of the greatest quotes that I've ever heard, right? I'm a sports guy, love sports, had opportunity,
Hmm.
be in sports journalism, was Jackie Robinson. And Jackie
Okay.
Robinson, for everything that we know that he's done, right, integrating Major League Baseball. When I think of him now, I think of this quote, and it said, "A life is not important except the impact that it has on other lives." And it's really not what we do, feel like we do for ourselves, but it's really the impact that it has on somebody else's life, right? And not to
True.
go too far off, but when we look at sort of, influencers and celebrities, and I hate to use that term, but when we look at these people, right, you see the passing of Nipsey a few years ago, and we see the passing of Kobe last year, it was like,
Yep.
wow, they impacted so many other people,
True.
and that's what made them great. I mean, they were great in their respective crafts, but more importantly, they impacted other people. That you had whole communities that hated each other in LA, and gang
Yeah.
members like coming together, for this brother's funeral. So yeah, it's really important that we try to live our lives from a selfless perspective, which is hard because I've been that guy like it got caught up in myself. And if
Mhm.
my wife tell it, I'm still caught up in myself. But yeah, we have to try to live from this other perspective and really help people and ask ourselves like, when I pass, like, what is that legacy that I'm leaving on the world?
Now, I don't know if you remember this, Rashad, but our first kind of real running every day seeing each other was actually at work at a Marks about, I say, 22 or so
20 years ago.
years ago. All right, see, yeah. I pulled that one
Wow.
out. Yeah, right, a long time ago. And like I said, the person you are today, like I said, just from afar, it's just like obviously just a bunch of growth. But from that, I guess, can you go into that a little bit? How did you go from America? See, even when I was at America, I was kind of in technology, but it's like America's to where you are now and the things that you're doing now. I know that had to be a journey. Like, what
Yeah.
that look like?
Here's the funny thing. Wow, Amerix. That is a
Yeah,
long
yeah.
time ago. That is a different version of Rashad too. So number one, God is good because that is a completely different version of the guy you talking to. That was the Rashad that was literally at the happy hour, and I'll get to
Now,
make.
real quick, before
Mhm.
you get in your story, that Rashad, and it's funny. Me and Jay was talking about this. He said, yo, y'all used to work together at America. I was like, I remember the face or whatever. He was like, and we literally hung out all the time. But you and Rashad were literally the same people. So y'all just didn't like each other's face.
Man, listen, that's a beautiful thing though. It's growth. We all have grown. Like I was
Exactly.
a different guy back then,
Me
but
too.
I think looking back at Amerix, I think I was got out of Amerix just based on at that time, man, I was like literally going through a dark place in my life before I got connected, with Amerix. Kind of job hopping, really didn't know exactly what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be in life, and I just applied. Saw Jason out there. I'm like, this is a great fit for me. But Amerix is sort of a part of Rashad because it always gave me the opportunity to talk. And speaking is my gift. So I had the opportunity for 7, 8 hours a day to talk to people about, trying to consolidate debt and credit and things of that nature. But it was just talking to people. And that was my gift. And to be honest with you, while I was working out of Merrick's, I knew that I always knew it before then, but I had a gift to gab. And that gift actually kept me out there probably longer than what I should have been, right? I was supposed to be fired about 2 years prior. And the fact I'm dead serious, but the fact that they love me and I can kind of maneuver my way around and I understood who really liked me and had my back. Amerix was like a great fit for me. And the thing about Amerix that I really loved that it gave me opportunity to talk to people. My supervisors always liked me and it gave me flexibility. So while I was out of Amerix and I was still partying and drinking and being a wild guy, I was still able to finish school. Like Amerix was instrumental in me graduating from Morgan State University. My supervisors have no idea, but they would always allow me to change my schedule. And they knew if it was school related, hey, Rashad,
You go.
go do school. This is much more important than where you're at now. So that was really, really helpful because without having certain supervisors there, it would have been much harder for me to graduate. Much harder.
That's dope. Now after that, you like you said, you got into sportscasting. I heard you was like the local Stuart Scott before Stuart Scott was
And
Stuart Scott.
I put it this way, Stuart Scott and Stephen A. Smith, people would always joke that I'm like their love child, right? So when I left Amerix in or when Amerix said, Rashad, it's time, you gotta go. Like it because I had like checked out probably 6 months before they had to let me go. And I walked in one day and I got a call um, from a place out in Oregon and
Okay.
said, hey, we want you to come out here to be a sports broadcaster. So we talking 2006, right? 2005, 2006. And at that time, it was no Instagram, so they can just go onto my IG page and see that, oh, this kid can kind of do his thing. It was like the VCR tapes. So I
Oh
had made a
man.
tape. I was interning at Fox 45. I made a tape. I'm Camden Yards, right? Went down there, interviewed some of the players, did sort of my little reel, and I sent it to different places across the country. So Oregon said, hey, come on out here. And when Oregon gave me the nod to come on out, like Amerix was like, it was a no-brainer. Like I didn't
Yeah,
have
yeah.
anything left in me. It was like, man, I'm done. So I went out to Oregon from 2006 to 2008. And for 2 years, I had an amazing opportunity to be in a completely different environment, experience different people. And to be honest with you, it was like a culture shock coming from Baltimore,
I'm
you
sure.
know, going out to Oregon and so many things that were ingrained in me as a Baltimore guy
Mhm.
I had to kind of unlearn like this isn't the culture that we live here. This
Ain't
isn't the
right.
norm for everybody. Like I'm talking like Keith, I'm
I
talking
know exactly what you said.
in 2007, people not locking their door.
Oh.
And I'm like, what is this about? No, but Rashad, we don't have break-ins. I'm like, well, you don't? Do you have robberies? Do you have shootings? No, no, we really. And I was like, wow, it's just different. People were friendly. People would speak to me. And I was like, when people would speak to me on the streets, I was like taken aback. I'm like, are you trying to, set me up?
Rob set me.
That's what it was. Like, in Baltimore, if somebody speaks, it's like, I'm gonna keep my so it was different. It was like an amazing experience. Yeah, so I did that for 2 years, and then I don't want to get too far. I don't know what your next question is, but I came back under not ideal conditions, right? I had a DUI.
Okay. Okay.
And Oregon said, look, we love you, Rashad. We love everything that you do, but it became too taxing for them because when you're in a low market TV station,
Hmm.
you are what they call a one man band. So I would
Okay.
go out to so for instance, I would go out to the high schools. I would shoot the footage. I would come back. I would edit the footage. I would write my script. And without having a license, my colleagues, they had to take me around to these places. And it was like they only had a limited number of cars, and it was like it became too much. So they let me go. And then I came back to Baltimore. I want to say it was in 2008, but I want to say maybe like the beginning of the summer in 2008. And I came back, man. And I was like, it wasn't good. My mind was like, man, I had worked so hard to get to this place. I had grinded, Morgan State internships, and I go out here and I blew it. And I came back and I was dejected and I had no idea what I would do. I tried to get back into sports broadcasting, but I just couldn't break back in. So that was a wild experience. That was a wild experience for me.
Now, how did you deal with that? Like you said, when you're back home, I think we all go through that sometimes where we have these dreams, and sometimes it seems as if what we wanted to do got snatched from us. How do you move on from that? How did you move on from that?
To be honest with you, I didn't do it in a very healthy way. Like, so
Okay.
the thing that ended the relationship with Oregon, I went right back to it. So I came back home and, I was jobless, working odds and end jobs. And I just started going back to partying and
Hmm.
drinking. So I didn't
Hmm.
handle it in a very healthy way at all. And it just, it was this thing now as a therapist, I'm always kind of laughing. I said, God, you really have a sense of humor. Somebody that had, some challenges, and now I'm helping other people with their challenges. But I didn't
Hmm.
handle it in a healthy way at all. I immediately came back and started drinking. I mean, I'm talking like when I got off the plane,
Hmm.
it felt like I was right back in somebody's, liquor store buying, alcohol and drinking because I didn't know any other way to kind of handle it. And mentally, I was so torn up that I had worked this hard to leave Baltimore only to come back like in
Hmm.
my brain was like a failure. I had failed, felt like myself, failed family members. Um, in actuality, that was my line of thinking that I had failed other people. They didn't view it that way, but I had viewed it that way. So I just went back to like
Oh, what you
drinking,
do?
yeah, to drinking, and probably drinking more then than what I had left because I was drinking now out of just frustration, anger, sadness. I'm mad at everybody. And I had no reason to be mad at people, but really I had to be mad at myself. And that's the way that I kind of cope with it.
Understood. It's we hear all the time, and you said it in that your health is your wealth and things like that. When you hear that, I hear that a lot, and it's health as well. Health as well. How do you define mental health and wellness?
Oh, that's a
As
good question. So mental health, and that is a great question. So with mental
science.
health, I'm gonna give you a very easy way of looking at it. When people
Mhm.
think about health, right, we always think about going to a doctor, whether there's a need or there is just simply a checkup.
Mhm.
I was hooping and twisted my ankle. Well, I need to go to a doctor just to make sure it's not more serious than what it is, right? Or I'm
Mhm.
going to a doctor just for a checkup. That is the same thing as it relates to mental health. Mental
Mhm.
health is if I have a serious issue, I'm going because there's a need there that needs to be addressed, or I can go for a checkup. And for some reason, I think now society has become a lot better and
Mhm.
understanding that mental health is just that is the health of your mind in essence. That's a layman's definition. It's a health of your mind. You go to a doctor, there's a need, and then you'll go just proactive or preventive measure. The same as
Mhm.
with mental health, right? And so you said mental health and then wellness.
And
To
why not?
me,
Mhm.
I don't think that you can be well if your mental health isn't right.
True.
It to me,
Gotcha.
like so the brain starts everything, right?
Hmm.
So
Yep.
if
Yep.
I'm not well in that area, I don't know that I can be completely well in other areas. I think it's impossible.
Now,
You
when
know?
you said that, so you had that event, you came home. Obviously, your mental health or your wellness wasn't there. Again, how did it turn around to come to therapy, being a therapist?
Woo, man, it was a long road. So I went into Baltimore City schools. I have a cousin who's the principal at one of the local schools. She said, "Why don't you try to be a substitute teacher?" And to be honest with you, I laughed at that idea because in school,
Right.
I gave substitute teachers, I gave them
The
all kinds of
business.
trouble. Yeah, I gave them the business. And that's a nice way of saying it. I was a substitute teacher. And at that time, I was still full of myself. Man, I'm too slick to be a substitute teacher. But then I was like, well, Rashad, you're broke. You have no money. So I walked into this school at the end of the year, and I really fell in love with the kids.
Mhm.
Really fell in love with the kids, and they said, "Hey, you know what? We'll bring you on next year." All right, cool, no problem. So the start of the next year, I'm a substitute teacher at Mount Royal Elementary Middle School in West Baltimore,
Okay.
and before I know it, one of the teachers got sick, and they said, "Hey, Mills, do you want to be a paraeducator?" So, what is a paraeducator? So it's a teacher assistant. And before I knew it, I had this class because this young lady was out most of the year with an illness. And
Okay.
I have this class. I am not a certified teacher. So I am literally figuring this teaching, quote unquote, teaching thing out throughout the
On.
whole year. And there was so many ups and downs, but it was really fun. And it was a story that will forever be like relevant in my life. It was a
Okay.
young man, and I know his name, remember his name, never will forget it, but I can't say it. And he was just really smart, really smart. He
Hmm.
was really sarcastic, and he was sharp and witty. And my brain always said, Rashad, that's a younger version of you. I mean, he was sarcastic. He was like on it.
Hmm.
And one day I had pulled him aside in the library. We were walking down the hall, and he said something completely, out of the way to the teacher. And I pulled him out, outside of the line. And I said, man, why do you do some of the things that you do? And he said, well, Mr. Mills, my brain tells me to do the right thing, but I always do the opposite.
Wow.
And that line, that was my thought. It was a wild moment. It never left me. And I said, well, I have to help these kids from a different level. So I applied for Teach for America, the program. And I knew I was a shoe in, right? I'm a shoe in. I'm a black guy, college degree, they need more male teachers. I'm a shoe in. It's definitely, I'm in here. They rejected me. And I
Oh.
couldn't figure out why. And it was a hard blow. But after he said that, my brain is said, how else can I reach these kids? And I was talking to different people in the school, and they said, well, have you thought about being a therapist, right? A therapist that works in schools. And so now I don't want to be a therapist. It's not for me. So I started to kind of research it a little more and, research and research. And before I know it, I applied at Johns Hopkins.
Mm.
I said, I'll give it a shot. And it just, and in my brain, being raised in Baltimore, I always equated Hopkins with being the hospital or, this really ritzy school. And I was like,
Hmm.
I'll never be able to get into Hopkins. Hopkins said, you're in. Hopkins
Come
said,
on down.
Hopkins said, you're in. And I was just like, wow, Johns Hopkins accepted me. And from there, it was like this love of therapy. And at that time, I'm still working with kids and I'm starting to see I can much better reach them from the perspective of a therapist. And I'm not fully licensed at this point, but from this perspective of therapy, as opposed to just teaching ABCs 1, 2, 3s to give them a different perspective. And it just grew and grew. And then eventually, every place that I was at, internships, Baltimore City Juvenile Justice Center, interning at while I was in Hopkins, I had a great experience, man. I actually was working at the women's prison in Jessup. And
Okay.
that sort of, I fell in love with this dynamic of working with people that are incarcerated. So it just kind of blossomed from there, but not in a million years. I would have thought that I would have went from wanting to be a teacher to therapy. Not in a million years.
Not in a million years.
No.
I personally actually, and that's why this subject for me is kind of close to home. I started my own, journey and just getting some healing, just some mental healing, some things, you get some depression going on. You don't want to kind of get out of bed. Everybody thinking your life is so great, but you feel like it's just not all of that. And what I realized is what you said a little bit earlier too about a lot of the stuff is internal, right? A lot of the
Yeah.
things are things you've been fighting since childhood. That's just again we seen a lot of trauma, right? Just growing up in Baltimore, and we just don't realize we take it in, and it's just like you said, everyday things. But it took me, I know, a long time to start. It took me a while to I knew what I needed to do or wanted to do, but it was just like or intake come, it's 3 hours. Oh no, I'm not doing that now. You just you're so quick to run away from it. And the question for you is, like, what do you see as those major barriers in people that, especially, I don't want to classify just minorities, but especially with minorities, like when looking to get help like that, why are we, what's that mental barrier you see always stuck there for
Mm.
mental health?
That could be a show in itself. So it really could be, right? Number one, it's going to be trust. Particularly for minorities, we have trust issues. We have trust issues within our own community and then outside of our community. So let's personalize it, right? For two guys like yourself being raised in, when we had interaction with people that weren't black, they were police officers and they were teachers. That was the extent of it. And both of those positions are positions of what? Authority,
How?
right? And power, exactly. So I'm not going to be very trusting of you. And number one, that's so trust is number one, right? Along with trust, relatability. Can I relate to you? How can I relate to you? You didn't grow up in the environments that I did. I don't know that you can even relate to me. So why would I sort of spill my business, tell my life story to you, and you can't relate to me, right? So those are two major things. The third one is it's still a stigma. Crazy, right? I'm gonna call it what it is and use the Baltimore vernacular. If we had to told somebody when we were younger, man, I'm going to therapy. My mom, is making me go to therapy. It would have been, yo, you crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the vernacular that we would have heard. And for somebody young who's still developing mentally, that wouldn't have been a good thing. That would have been damaging. Would we have been, laughed at by our friends? Some of our friends would have joked us, nonstop. Yo, crazy, yo, crazy. And I hate to say it in that way, but
Nah, nah, that's how they say
that's what is
it.
the reality. And as we got older, it's like, okay, so it's stigma, right? And then as you get older, it's like, well, time, as you said it, right? I have my own family now. Do I have time to go to therapy? And in actuality, we do, but we would self-sabotage a lot of therapeutic beginnings because we didn't want to go in the beginning. Oh, well, she said the appointment is at 8 o'clock on a Monday. Now I got to watch Monday Night Football, right? She's talking about Friday at 5 o'clock. Now I'm going out to happy hour. Or Wednesday, I got to go to the gym. It's so many things. It's stigma, and then another thing is money.
True, true.
Money. Like a lot of us, had these jobs when we were younger. We didn't have access to quality premium health care,
Insurance. Yeah.
right? And therapy, depending where you go, therapy can be an expense, albeit it's a very needy expense. But we wouldn't have viewed it that way. So those things are some of the biggest ones. But if I had to name two, trust and relatability, I'm not going to, some white person tell them my problems. I don't trust them, nor they can't relate to me.
Exactly. And like you said, that they some big things, even like trust, right? How do you uh I think that was one for me. What do you tell, I guess, clients that may have been incarcerated before or abused by the system in some way? It's kind of hard to trust, to your point. If I get yanked up by police because I'm walking down the street, but then, the same kind of, if let's say, to your point, I don't have insurance from work. I use, insurance, state insurance.
Mm-hmm.
These are the same people now that's going to help me mentally, but abuse me over here and here. How do you, what advice do you give for people that kind of get caught in that mental situation with the trust?
That's a great question. So this is what I would, and that happens a lot, to be honest with you. And I tell people, what's the opposite of not giving it a try? And then most people will say, well, Rashad, I remain at the same place. And then I'll ask them, tell me how that place feels. And most of them will say, man, it sucks. I want to get to a different place. So I would say, in order to get to a different place, you have to allow yourself to do this. Most of us, as it relates to therapy, we operate like this, guarded, right? And in order to grow and move forward, you can't do it like this. I got to do it like this. So release the guard and move forward and give it an opportunity, because if not, you can remain guarded, but that issue that you want to work through, it's always going to remain there. So the opposite of not trusting is staying stuck. And here's the thing, if your will to be unstuck is strong enough, you will do this. And it may be slowly. And for most of
Mm-hmm.
us, it's going to be slowly, particularly for men of color. It's going to be, you might drop and then put it back up, right? Like I'm
And you keep doing it, and you
yeah.
better have that maintenance.
And right. And listen, we may do this for a while. We may set appointments, talk to somebody. No, and then eventually some things happen where we'll drop the gun and it was like, all right, we eventually gotta go.
Mhm.
Yeah, we eventually gotta go.
And like you said, the stigma I think is huge. Not just the stigma, like you said, of kids, right? They're abusive, right? You crazy, you this, you that. But even the stigma, I would say within family. I like I said, I
Oh, yeah.
know, just going down this journey, and you got to come to some realizations, with yourself, with your past, and sometimes that might take some conversations. But what I noticed, yeah, you might be ready on that journey, but you go back to say the family with some of those conversations, everybody's not ready for that. Like you said, that stigma's still there of, well, you should be okay. Just, you keep your head forward, don't worry about it. And it's like, okay, but I got kids. I just want to give them the same tools that, maybe we missed a couple generations.
Yeah. So I'm glad you mentioned that. It's not only this stigma from like outside our communities outside of the house. And when I say communities, maybe it's guys that we play basketball with, guys we went to school with, or um, other communities outside of the house. It's the
Hmm.
main community that helped shape us and mold us inside of our house, right?
Hmm.
We're young and we go to, imagine you go to your parent, mom, I'm interested in going to therapy, right? A lot of times what happens, to be honest with you, your parents may not really be 100% approving of that because guess what? They may think in therapy, some of their stuff is going
Comes
to
out.
come out, right, and be highlighted. So they may not necessarily be an advocate of therapy. And then again, they may have never been exposed to therapy, so they don't know what that process looks like. Um, they don't know everything about that. They
Hmm.
can't direct you to a therapist. They can't tell you how to navigate connected with a therapist financially because they've never done it. So that's why
Hmm.
right now, right, man, it makes my heart so happy to see sort of the space that we're going in terms of therapy, that it's not as taboo. It's still taboo for some.
Hmm.
There's still a huge stigma, but I'm starting to see, and again, I hate to use this term, celebrities or influencers use their power to, man, I'm in therapy right now. I love like, the NBA. I'm still follow sports, right? To see
Hmm.
guys that played in the bubble, man, this was
Yeah.
anxiety producing. I was depressed being in the same spot, not being able to go. Kyrie Irving, right? I took
Hmm.
games off to protect my mental health. I mean, one of the best players in the league. And
Hmm.
I like the direction that we are going when we see people talking about mental health more and more, because we do need to pull this stigma down. So maybe the next generation of Rashads and Keiths, they was, mom, hey, I'm feeling this way. I'm feeling that way. Do you know of a therapist?
Right.
What would that do for generations and households? It's a game changer.
Man, way game changer. Even like you said, what does it do for household? What I learned through the process is it's just forgiveness, right? Like you said, as a man, it's kind of hard to go, like you said, through this period because here is about vulnerability.
Hmm.
And the vulnerability is that, you got to be real with your own wounds. And that sometimes, like, again, for me, it just, forgiveness was big because you understand that what was pitched on to me was probably pitched and pitched and pitched from years and years. And hopefully, again, we can do that breakage where, again, we break that stereotype of that stigma and hopefully, get the families back healed again.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's crazy. But now, like with people when they thinking about therapy or mental health, and they don't really know where to go at or how to start, what would you suggest? Like where are places people can kind of look?
Listen, most 99.9 Americans have a cell phone, right?
Hmm.
Grab your cell phone, go to some sort of search website or search engine, therapist near me. Start there. And I know that sounds really simplistic at its core. That's a great place to start. Most of us have our phones in our hand, I don't know,
All the
80%
time.
or 80% of the time, right? Start there. Then, right, ask people in your circle. Ask people in your circle. And the reason why I said ask people in your circle second and go with your phone first, because again, we just talked about it. If nobody in your circle has experienced therapy, then that may not be the best avenue because you can quickly become, I should say, frustrated.
Really?
I'm frustrated. I've asked 5 people, man, you know what therapy? Man, I ain't going to no therapy. I've never been in therapy. But guess what? If I grab my phone, hey Siri, find the therapist near me. She's literally Siri is searching for
And
therapists near
checking it
me.
out. She
Yeah.
already got you at 5.
And
And to your point, you already probably looking for a way out. So if your friends tell you no, you're gonna go
exactly.
with them.
Self-sabotage. And the thing about it, if you just grab your phone and look, you can find therapists that you feel are a good fit for you, right? So many of the clients that go to the website of the practice that I'm involved in, they will read something about me. Say, man, this resonated with me. Sort of in my little bio. Some of them do that due diligence to a whole nother degree, and they'll Google me. Oh man, you know what? You're a good fit for myself, my wife, my family, right? So people are going to find this connection. If they find that I can connect with Keith, I read his bio, something about his picture. If I feel like I connect with him, then that's going to lead me to him. And when people just search, you can search and scroll through pages and pages of therapists and whoever you feel like is a good fit. And I'll say this, I always tell people, think of therapists as no different than you think of fast food restaurants. And people say, Rashad, what are you talking about? Therapists are, if you don't like Burger King fries, drive 5 minutes, it's Chick-fil-A. If you don't like Chick-fil-A's fries, it's 5 minutes down the road, you can get McDonald's. It's the same relates with the therapist, right? It's whatever is your preference. It's a preference oriented thing. And most therapists, if you go to a website, I mean, they're going to have a bio. Do you connect with them? Was it a line in there that maybe they are Christian? They love God. Oh, I want a Christian oriented therapist. Maybe you want a therapist that is non-religious. Maybe this therapist indicated something in their bio. So it's just different ways to connect. But just literally start by grabbing your phone and find therapists near me. And you can be very specific. Find black male therapists near me. Find white female therapists near me. And for people of color, you have man, you have Jesus, this slipped my mind. It just slipped my mind. You have different sites. Let me actually, as we talk, I'll get them because I don't want to botch them. But it's so many of them specifically for people.
Cool. And like you said, basically it's about, and I think the gist of what you're saying is find somebody you feel comfortable talking to.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody you don't mind telling your story and being honest about your story, because without the honesty, it's kind of hard to start the healing.
Yep.
Now, from a technology, because you pulled out the phone, so that's a good tie into the technology piece. How is technology helping you kind of in your practice? Is it helping you make it better? Are you reaching more people? Or like I said, I know on Facebook, I do get a lot of your interactions and and things like that. How's technology helping you out in what you're doing now with the therapy?
Oh man, greatly. And real quick, I wanted to give you, so it's therapyforblackmen.org, for
Okay.
anybody listening. Therapyforblackmen.org is a great space. And then therapyforblackgirls.com. So therapyforblackmen.org and then therapyforblackgirls.com. So therapy and technology has been great. It has absolutely been great for me. So when the pandemic really took, full swing,
Mhm.
it was like new for everybody, right? I was a part of two different practices, the practice that I'm a part of now and another practice. And everybody was just figuring it out. How do we do therapy virtually? I mean, it's been in existence, but not to this extent. And the practice that I'm no longer a part of, they had an app and it was just bad. It was just, and again, it's not a fault of them, but they were just figuring it out. And it was an app and it was bad. And sometimes I couldn't see the people and couldn't hear the people. So that was kind of rough. And then I feel like maybe in like in April and May, it started to smooth out a lot more, and it became really simple. Hey, this thing that's been in existence for years, people have been using it, sporadically. Zoom. You send the Zoom link, clients click on the link, hit a few buttons where they can see you, you can see them, and it's just been great. Now, the connection between therapy and technology has been so great that therapists have access now to see more people than ever. And why? Because I have clients keep literally on their lunch breaks. They run out to their car, grab their phone, they click on the Zoom link, and I have access to seeing them. Maybe that wasn't the case before, right? I have access to start my sessions early in the morning. Why? Because I'm waking up and I'm walking to, my makeshift office, in my residence, and I get to see more people. So for therapists, the average therapist, I would imagine, has probably been able to see, if I had to take a guess, I would say maybe 30 to 50% more clients than before. Because why? We're not traveling.
Now, are you?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, not to cut you off, but that's a good point. Are you seeing actually more? I know you're seeing more because your schedule is open, but is it more of an influx because of COVID and just people
Oh,
being
without
pent up?
question. Without question. Um, Last year was by far the best year of my life as a therapist in terms of clientele. I mean, I tell my wife this all the time, like, I'm so blessed because I've had more client requests than I have time to actually see them.
Wow.
And COVID, it's been a part of that. Now, think about this. If I've had some issues anyway, and I've been able to sort of mask those issues with these other distractors, I can go out and drinking every week. I can go out, um, on all these other things. Like, I can go, the gym is a healthy distraction, but sometimes it's a distraction for a bigger issue. I can go out and kind of set some of my issues away. I can do this, that, and the third. Now it's like, no, a lot of these things shut down. I'm in the house and I got to deal with these issues. Like, I can't run from them. And I'm in the house all the time. Nothing is open but Target and Walmart. It's like, let me call this therapist. And now guess what? I don't have the time to sort of lie and say, I don't, man, I don't have the time. How you do? You're not driving, to and from work. So that 45-minute time that it takes to commute, you can call a therapist, complete an intake. The next week, you're seeing the therapist. The time that you're driving home, now that's dedicated to seeing a therapist for 45, 60 minutes. So it's really been a blessing for therapists in a weird way. And I use that term very loosely, but COVID has been a blessing because why? Now more people are really faced with the issues and they're confronting them more and more and more, particularly anxiety. Anxiety has been it's been off the charts for a lot of people.
People losing jobs, they're
Yeah,
losing
it's
family members.
uncertainty,
Just
right? It's
yeah.
the uncertainty of everything. We talk about, losing family members, grief and loss issues, right? Navigating the world that I'm at home working and my kid is at home working, right? I never
That's
thought
enough.
so many issues. If I didn't like my husband or my wife, I could go to work and escape from them for 8 hours. Now I
Ain't
can't look
happening.
at this rascal for 10 hours. Man, I need couples therapy. So it's something that has really forced us to re-examine ourselves and our stuff to a much greater degree. I mean, it really has.
Now I do the same health thing with the therapy. I guess with that, do you feel from a therapist side, is it about the same interaction if they were sitting on a couch or sitting in your office, or is
Uh,
personal still kind of
That's a good question. So, as a part of me as a therapist, I do like those intimate settings because I refer to myself as like a body language therapist.
okay?
When I'm in therapy with a client, there's a lot of things that I say. I may ask a question and I'm paying attention to the body language
Okay.
of the client. Now, those very, I guess, small nuances I don't have access to do virtually, but I've adjusted to it. Now, if I had my preference one way or the other, it's like it would be splitting hairs because I do like to see my clients face to face. But again, in this virtual world, I'm able to service more clients. But there are some things that, virtually you miss out on. And for me, it's like body language. I can sense certain things. Like if I ask him a question and we're going down a really deep place, I can, I've seen clients like picking their nails, and that would lets me know, wow, this is
This is something that they
yeah,
don't feel comfortable with.
tapping the feet, right? And you can't necessarily see that
Mm,
virtually.
mm.
So it's kind of split down the middle for me.
Now, is it a software or technology out there somebody can create that'll make it like, you know, this taking the whole therapy game to the next level? Or Zoom and those guys, they pretty good with the video conferencing.
Zoom is really good. I
All
mean,
right.
Zoom is really good. You have the option. I have some clients, to be honest with you, that they never turn on their video.
Okay.
I've had clients that I worked with for 6 months. They weren't comfortable, right?
Okay.
I've had clients that didn't know how to turn on the video. And listen, totally okay with me.
Yeah, yeah,
But,
yeah.
but now, to kind of go back to the previous question, for some clients who are still working their way into therapy, it does allow them not to be as vulnerable as I would like because they can kind of hide behind technology.
Okay. Okay.
They don't have to show their
They
face.
can they can keep the camera off or they can.
Yeah, and a lot of times they may be hiding something that in the office, obviously they couldn't hide, that it would be important for a therapist to see.
Gotcha.
So that's
Yeah.
the Zoom is good, and there's some other ones, but I mean I really like Zoom. To be honest with you, it's pretty easy, and I'm not the greatest tech guy, so it's click on the link, click
And
audio,
good to go.
video, and bam, yeah.
So therapists, y'all better get a Zoom package. Y'all heard it from the man.
Please
All
do.
right, man. To circle back around so the point don't get lost, man. If what are some telltale symptoms, right? Like what if I'm walking around and again, for me, the awareness came just after some reading and kind of just doing a lot of listening. Like I said, maybe checking in with your show every now and again, listening to some symptoms. But what are some things maybe people can pay attention to that, like, hey, you know what, it might be time for me to go this route, or because again, we men, right? We always shove it off to I'll be all right, or it's not that bad. When is that weird window where we might want to start doing some self-care?
Great question. So here's what I will respond to that, and this is my response every time I hear that question: time, duration, and frequency. Grad school professor told me that, and it has never left my mind. So,
Mhm.
how much time are you impacted by whatever? So, if it's thoughts, how much time? If it's behaviors, the duration of it, how long does it last? Does Keith realize that, man, every day for an hour, I have these really negative thoughts. I don't feel like that I'm good enough, or I have thoughts for an hour every day that I don't know what I want to do with the next phase of my life. And it really weighs down on me heavily, right? Time, duration, and frequency. How often do these things happen? So the reason why I like that so much is we can wake up one day and say, you know what, I don't feel good about myself today. Does that mean I need to go see a therapist? Not necessarily. But if, right, that thought is there, it feels like every other day and it's lingering and I can't concentrate and my level of functioning is impacted, like I can't be the best father that I need to be because I'm thinking about, man, I don't really feel good about myself. If it's impacting areas of my life, then those are signs that I need to go and potentially see somebody. So time, duration, and frequency. Not every thought that you have that you produce throughout the course of the day is enough that you should be sitting in front of a therapist. Not every thought. But again, a lot of us, and I would say most of us, we have, reoccurring events and symptoms, ruminating thoughts, right?
Mhm.
Reoccurring behaviors, and they happen so much, but we have normalized them to the point that it's like, oh, okay, this is normal. But again, time, duration, and frequency, right? I don't believe that somebody wakes up overnight. I mean, wakes up, from last night, and it's like, oh man, I'm feeling anxious. No, those symptoms that produce that anxiety, they have been there, but you have just shoved them off in a closet and closed that closet door. And now you're so comfortable, you never want to open up that door. But yeah, you need to go see somebody. I didn't just wake up today and you were depressed. No, you were experiencing depressive symptoms for 2 years, the last 2 years, for example. So time, duration, and frequency are the things that some of the, I guess, probing style questions I always ask people. How long? You know, has your appetite been affected? Has your sleep been affected? What's the quality of your relationships, your intimate relationships, your professional relationships? And then when people will talk, you ask these questions, people will talk, and you'll find out, wow, you've been dealing with this 3 years, 2 years.
Quite some time.
Yeah, a
Wow.
consistent 6 months, but you just again shoved them off into this closet and never opened up that closet door.
Time, duration, and frequency, right?
Time, duration, and frequency.
Y'all heard it from the man himself. All
Time,
right,
duration, and frequency.
what's up with my guy, Mr. Mills, going forward, man? What's anything new popping off, or is it just kind of
Wow.
just on the grind?
Grinding, definitely grinding, right? Again,
Mm-hmm.
seeing more clients than I've ever seen before. Trying to grow professionally, and grow professionally, kind of add some other classes and certifications so I can become even a better therapist. Currently in seminary school right now, which is
Oh,
interesting
that's what's up.
to go back to school and turning in papers and studying and midterms. That's new for me because I haven't been in that direction a long time, but that's definitely new. So I'm doing that and just staying motivated, like really staying motivated as possible, trying to be the best, husband and father, which is a daily, challenge for me.
Yeah,
And then working out. Working out is like my sanity, running with Rashad is kind
Ronnie
of
Rashad.
that's like my weekly long run, and I kind of post to keep people encouraged. And in the next probably no more than 30 days, I'll start training again for a 50-mile run. I trained for it last year and came up short, only 40 miles. So that's on my list to complete this year.
Did
And
y'all hear him? That's only 40 miles. You just threw that off there, Rashad. Like we just
you know
running
what?
40 miles.
Listen, I say that because somebody's a motivational speaker, I fell short. I
Mhm.
fell short of my goal. I fell short, didn't plan, properly that day. Hydration, there's a bunch of things. So I have to complete it. It's on my list. And I've gotten into this thing now. I'm all about attacking your fears. So my wife and I, right now, we are more like rocks than Michael Phelps when it comes to swimming. Like we're like rocks. So got this, hey, we're taking swimming lessons. So
That's what's up.
this year I plan to snorkel a few times and get out of my comfort zone completely. And then eventually, looking towards next year, I want to start preparing myself, training for a half an Ironman.
Man,
So
you sound like a therapist, man. That's the same thing. Facing those fears, overcoming them, and realize you
attack,
get on the other side is not even that bad, man. You was holding your life up for nothing.
attack them. So like right now, I can't even swim the length of a pool. But you know what? My brain is saying I'm gonna figure it out with some help. And then why not snorkel? Why not jump into the ocean and like my thought is like,
Hustler mentality.
listen, like literally, we only have one life to live. And when I
True that.
die, I always tell people now, especially in the last year and a half, I want to die empty.
Mm,
I do not want to be
good point.
85, 90, however many years the good Lord allows me.
Mm.
And man, I should have. Nah, I don't want to have. I should have. So yeah, I'm going for it.
I feel you on that. All right, man. As we wrap up, we ask all our guests this question, and yeah, you from the hood, so I know you're a sneakerhead. Favorite tennis shoes of all time, man.
So listen, I am going to go, and after the fresh J's behind you, I'm going to go in a direction that most people it would be J's, Air Max 95. Although Air Max 95 will probably be second, but number one on my list, and this some of the people listening may have to Google this, the Andre Agassi's. Let me tell you why.
Okay, okay.
You kind
I
of
remember
had the
now. The
fire on
Nike,
his
the
back.
fly. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So let me tell you why. Growing up, my mom couldn't afford the freshest stuff. Just couldn't afford it. When I was able to work, I bought those Andre Agassi's for myself. And I went to Woodlawn High School that year, and I knew I was the freshest cat in the world. And I wore them to the point that they were like so dirty.
It was done.
Yeah. So the Andre Agassi's and the late Keon Carpenter,
Mm,
I had walked into a class that we had together. And this was actually, so it's Andre Agassi's number one. And then
mhm.
for me, it was Air Max 95. And then third on the list was, if you remember, the Chris Webbers with the straps. They
I
strapped
remember
up.
the joint. They had the did they have force on the strap? No, they no
No,
no
they
no
didn't
no
have
no no
four.
no.
The black
The
and gray.
X one,
And when I walked into a class with
the
Keon,
Michigan joints.
the Michigan ones,
Yeah.
Where did you get them? He was talking about the Chris Webbers.
The up tempos. They would call up tempo.
Man. But the Andre Agassi's, man, I knew I was the freshest cat in the world. I was modeling those shoes every day, and to the point they was just like so dirty. My mother was like, "Why don't you clean them?" And I'm like, listen, I'm gonna
Hey,
wear these until I can't wear them
look,
anymore.
I worked all summer for these.
Man, Old Country Buffet and McDonald's. That's
Which
a
one
true
on Route
story.
40?
On Route
The one
40.
I know exactly which one.
On Route 40, Old Country Buffet, and I worked at two McDonald's, Security Boulevard, and the one that was closer to in the back of Woodlawn High School. So I had
Okay,
three jobs, and my mother said, "You want fresh tennis? Go get them." Okay, cool, no problem.
say less.
Andre Agassi's, yeah, Andre Agassi's.
My
Strangely
God.
enough, and I just got to wrap up. Strangely enough, man, I only own one pair of J's, and I think it was the Laney High School, his high school colors.
Okay.
I only own one pair of J's, and somebody stole them from a locker in the gym that I was working out in. So, yep, I only own one pair of J's.
Yeah, that's my story. I only had my favorite is the Concrete Force, but because I couldn't afford them when I was young and when I got that first job, actually, I think I was probably a merch. That's when I could get the money to buy Jordans on some extra. So yeah,
Once I,
that was
man, once I got them, look, it's on. Once I got the money, so yeah, that's kind of that's my story with tennis, man. Andre Agassi,
Andre Agassi. I'm gonna have to find that one. That's digging in the crates, but I know
digging in
exactly
the
which
crates,
ones you're
man.
talking about. I
Classic.
remember the
Yep.
commercials for them.
Yeah, classic. The classic, man. I actually need to find them and buy them again.
Hey, look, there you go. Hey, look, they probably like $1,000 on StockX or something, though now.
Yeah, right now because like they won't.
Can't find them, man. They
Yeah.
did stop.
Mm-hmm.
But cool, man. Hey, I appreciate you, Rashad. Like I said, just thank you for all of the information and nuggets for helping somebody. I know they probably watching this. I just hope that you got the information that you needed. We just again thank you again, brother, for the work that you do in the community. Just all over. We appreciate your inspiration. I know I do when I speak for we. And just thank you for being on the show, man. I appreciate it. Good stuff.
Man, I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
All right, man. I'll catch up with you.
All
Thanks,
right,
man.
have a good one. No
Talk
problem
to
at
you.
all. Thank you again.